it's Dawn Marie with Custom Comfy Crochet, and today I'm here to let you know the 10 crochet tips and tricks that every crocheter should know. Excuse me, we've been a little sick in my house. Thank goodness you can't catch anything through the phone because we've all had the flu. But anyway, I wanted to come to you today and let you know how to do these great fun things. Just real quick, please remember to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, do the notify me thing on Facebook. I am on Facebook Live. If you hear me talking to anyone, I am not talking to myself. I am talking to people that are communicating with me on Facebook Live because I will later download this video on YouTube. So I always like to mention that. So yeah, I hope everyone's having a great day today. As I did say, the flu is going around here. I think it's going around the whole country. So if anyone's watching and you're sick, I surely hope you feel better, and I totally sympathize with you. Okay, so the first tip or trick I'm going to tell you about is how to get totally straight edges when you are crocheting, doing double crochets. This also works with other stitches. This is just the best way to show you this. And if you are a crocheter and you've been doing it for some time, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's this, okay? When we do double crochets, we get these little spaces here, and they kind of bulge out. And if you're a loose, if you crochet loosely, which everyone has different tensions, it can even be worse than this. I have a little bit of a tight tension, but you can notice that if, like, let's say I'm going to loosen this up a little bit. If I was a little bit looser, then you can really start to see the dips and the side. And this was done correctly. This is just double crochet. Okay. So this is what we're normally taught to do. Okay. We are normally taught to, we're doing double crochets going along, and we're taught to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. And then we are taught to not go in to this one because this one counts as one, but to go into the next one. And then we would crochet down with our double crochets. And do you see what happens? We get this really funky little thing that juts out and makes ridges. And there are times that we're wanting to do quick stuff that we don't want to do edging on. And this just, would make it so much easier with what I'm about to teach you. But I'm going to go ahead and go down to, because I want to show you what we're normally taught to do at the other ends as well. Okay, so sorry, my yarn got stuck. So we're going to keep going down here. I just did a quick little swatch for you, or whatever that's called. I don't even know if I never say that right or not. Excuse me. I'm going to try not to cough during the video. Okay, so we're working our way down, doing our normal double crochets. And what we're taught to do is we just go here to our end. Just go here to the end. And look at this. Because of the way that we're taught, when we get to this last stitch, it doesn't even look like a stitch. And this is why people end up with those triangles. They end up with these crazy looking triangles. They end up with wide here, wide there. And it's simply because it doesn't even look like a stitch should belong there. The only reason I know that one belongs there is just because I've been doing it for so many years. And maybe some of you do know that, and that's fine. But for people who are starting out and haven't been crocheting long, and even for people who have and they just don't know, and sometimes they're just sitting there and they've suddenly come up with a triangle, this makes things really confusing. So then we would, finally figure it out, and we'd go into this, try our best to get into this last little space here, and then we would do our chain up 3 again, and then we would turn our work, and then we would go into the next space, and we'd create another little pocket and ridge there. So I'm going to show you how to get rid of that. Okay, I just wanted to show you what we were talking about real quick so that you know. Okay, This is one that I'm doing that has no ridges. If you see, it's just completely straight. There's no pockets, there's no anything. So let me quickly show you how to do this. Also, a lot of people who are new to crochet, they're like, oh, why is she starting way up here? I want to know how to start in the beginning. Well, let me tell you, all you do is you chain however many you need in your pattern. You know, do your regular double crochet here up at the top, go all the way down. And so it's just going to be the same. Okay, so this is exactly the same from the beginning to the end to everywhere. Okay, so I just wanted a base to start with because it's kind of hard to see if you don't do that. Okay, so let's say you had were starting your crochet, and this is exactly how it would work. To get these straight edges, you would chain up 2. Okay, then you would turn your work and you would work into this first stitch. It's supposedly a big no-no, but this is going to turn out beautiful. So please try this. Okay, so that is technically our first double crochet, and if you can tell, there's still just one thing up here, so it's not going to mess up your count. Then you would continue going, you know, down whatever you're working on, if it's a scarf, if it's a blanket, whatever you're doing, a granny square, at the end of a granny square. Okay, so you're going around and you're just doing your double crochets. And I'm just going to get to the end here to show you what you do at the end, because you need to do these 2 things at the beginning and the end to get these wonderful straight edges. Okay, so I'm going down, and look at this. I can see exactly where I need to work into. Okay, I know right there I need to work in. But actually, even with this one, it can still be a little confusing, and that's my next tip. Okay, but anyways, moving on. Okay, so to finish this, to get the straight edges, you would go right in here to do a double crochet, but what you're going to do is 2 double crochets together. So I'm going to go through 2, and I'm not going to finish it. I'm going to pick up some more yarn, go through the same place, pull up and go through 2, and then crochet, go through all 3 loops. And that is what's going to keep this straight. And I want to do that again for you, okay? Hi, Rita. So to continue getting these straight edges, now I'm going to do this again. I'm going to, again, chain 2. I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to double crochet right into this first spot. Again, this does not mess up your count because that just counts as 1. And then I'm going to go all the way back down. And I'll just do this really quickly. Just going to do all your double crochets all the way back down. And then when you get to the end here, you're going to do just like I told you to do before. And so we found our last one here. And you're going to do 1 double crochet, or start to do a double crochet, so you're really technically doing 2 together. So you're going to go in, but you're only going to go through the 2 and leave the 2 on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over like you're doing another double crochet, pull up, and then go through 2. And then go through all 3. Okay? And look at that, it just makes a beautiful edge, and that's how you keep doing it. So again, just one more time, I would chain up 2, turn my work, do a double crochet right in this spot right here. I would continue on with my double crochets, And then when I got to my end here, I would do 2 together, okay? And that's how you get these beautiful straight edges. No little loops or hooks or anything that's just so confusing, okay? So this is great, and it makes a beautiful scarf. As you can see, it's just straight as an arrow. And then you could come back later if you're making a scarf and do a beautiful edging with, I don't know, a flower edging or whatever you want to do. But it just makes something really easy to do that, you know, just looks gorgeous, okay? So the next thing I want to show you to do, okay, my next little trick is with we battled the first problem with being able to find this, okay? But even with making it easier to see this at the end here, these double crochets and whatnot when you're going back and forth, anytime anyone's doing any kind of work, especially going back and forth like this, if you're making beanies and you're doing, you know, the little edges for the beanies, and you know, you look up and all of a sudden everything's wonky, you've got a triangle, you've got, who knows, just, it's happened to all of us, you know? So the easiest thing to do, forget counting. I mean, count if you want to, I don't care, do whatever you want, but this works best, okay? And I'm gonna get some more yarn. Kind of dark, but I've got a bright light going, so I'm hoping you can see it. I'm just using some yarn that I have, but I want to show you what to do, okay? This is the foolproof way, especially if you're starting out, to never end up with a triangle or a messy piece of business there. So I'm going to, and I've got yarn everywhere on my desk. Okay, so I'm just going to, let's say I'm going to chain 10. 9 and 10, okay? And then I'm going to chain 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then I'm going to go into my 4th chain from the hook, and I'm going to do a double crochet, okay? That's the way we would start something. That's the way a pattern would read. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of yarn to use as a stitch marker. You do not have to have the stitch markers that you buy in the store. You can use a paper clip. You can use a bobby pin. You can use a keychain. You can use anything you can possibly imagine to be a stitch marker. And that was one of my other tips. Okay, so, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right down to where I first started. And I'm going to use a piece of yarn as my stitch marker. That always works best for me. And I'm going to put that right there. That way I know when I'm coming down that that's exactly where I need to go. Okay, so let me just show you real quick what you would do. Okay, so you would continue working your double crochets all the way down, and I really wanted to show you this from the beginning instead of using my little piece that I had made up, so that you could see how this could work, so that you would always have straight edges and never end up with, even if you don't use my method, even if you use the other method, this is the way to never end up with a triangle. Hi, thanks Rita. And yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't say this is a 4.25 millimeter hook, and this is just some Hobby Lobby yarn. Okay, so I'm just going to go down with these double crochets here, and now see, I know exactly where I need to go, so I can pull that out. Okay, and this is great for people who are starting off, because you know, we get to the end and we're like, wait a minute, do I put one there? Where do I put one? That looks like the end, you know? So if you put a stitch marker there of whatever you want to use, then it works, okay? So now I finished that, and I know I've got to go back around here again. So I'm going to place my stitch marker here now. Okay. And then I'm gonna, you know, I would do the, if you're doing it the regular way, chain up 3, and then you would turn your work, and then you would go down, and then you can also put one at the beginning and the end. Okay, but that's just a great way to keep those straight edges and to know exactly where you need to go. Okay, so that was my other tip. And then you heard about the paper clip for the for stitch markers. You do not have to use the ones you buy in the store. I used to use those all the time and I kept losing them, so I stopped wasting my money on them, and I just use a piece of yarn because I always have yarn hanging around. But like I said, you can also use a bobby pin. You know, you can use a paper clip, a keychain, anything you can possibly imagine, just to put something there so you know where to go. Okay, so my next tip is going to be, I'm looking at my little list here. We're going to go ahead and work on how to change colors effortlessly. So I'm going to take my little piece that I have here already worked up. And actually I'm going to use this one right here because I know a lot of people may not be using that method right now or may not want to. So we're just going to use this right here. And I'm going to show you how that you change colors and how to work them in as you go. Okay. So let's just say we're coming to the part in our project where we would like to introduce another color. And the thing about it is the way that we're taught to change colors almost feels like, sorry, I was getting my other yarn. It almost feels like it's not going to stay. And so that makes us think that sometimes we're doing it wrong, or that it's not tight enough. So I'm going to show you real quick what to do, and also how to make it look like you really can't see that the color changed there. So this is how to do this at the beginning and the end of any kind of project, okay? And usually that is what you're doing. You're changing colors at the beginning or the end. However, this would work the same in the middle as well. So I'm fixing to show you that in just a second. Okay, so we're at the end of our project. We're ready to change colors. I've got my other color right here. So I'm going to be working my last double crochet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go in and work my double crochet like I normally would. Go in, but I'm only going to go through the first 2. Okay. Now, there are going to be times when you're working other stitches besides double crochets. You're going to be working single crochets. You could be working a V-stitch. You could be doing, this is how you're going to do this for every single stitch that you're working for a color change. Okay. So I've worked half of my double crochet, and now normally what I would do is I would pull this up and then I would go through to finish it. But now what I'm going to do is pull in my other color. So you can go like this if it makes it easier for you, and then just pull it through. Now when I do that, I want to leave enough yarn, okay, so I could pull it if I wanted to at this point. I want to leave enough yarn to work through, okay? So now I need to go ahead and cut off the yarn that I was working with before. So I'm going to do it around the same as my other one, my green. Okay. And look at that. It looks so loose, right? Like you can't even really control it that well. Well, it's really simple. Just pull this white. Pull the white and then pull the green. Okay. And then it just comes together there. Okay. And then I know I'm going to be turning my work, so I'm going to chain up 3, and as soon as I do that, it locks my color into place. Okay. So now I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to lay this against right here. Okay. And I'm going to work over that to catch my 2 pieces. Okay. So that I don't have to work them in later. So I'm just going to show you real quick. I would go right over those and do a double crochet, And I would continue doing that for however long the pattern would need me to, but in this case, all the way down. Now you see how long my tails are. This is very important. When you're working in a color change and you're working over your 2 pieces of yarn here, okay, which you could work in later. You don't have to do it this way. You could use a needle, a darning needle or crochet needle, whatever you want to call it, and you could do that later. This makes it much easier though. But, so I would just keep going along. But if I had these a lot shorter and they were only worked in through here, they're not going to stay in there. They could easily work their way out of that. The length is what is so important here. Okay, guys? So for some reason, you accidentally cut it off shorter and you don't want to undo what you've done, then you definitely need to use a darning needle. Don't do it like this. If it's too short, use a needle. Okay? So I'm working along here. And I would just continue doing that for as long as I could to cover as much of those 2 pieces so that they will be secure and never come undone. Because guys, I've been crocheting since I was 12 years old. I'm almost 40. And there are still times when I have had blankets come unraveled on me. And it's probably because I made, you know, it's usually big blankets that I made that it happens on. It could be too that they're washed, and I'm going to make another video on how to repair those. It could be that they've been worn out, but it also could be that there was some point that I forgot to work in something and then it just falls apart later. So this is really important because you don't want your work to fall apart. So, and I've stressed a lot in my videos about working in your yarn. Never knot off unless you're working something like a applique that is going to be glued or sewn on something, and then it really doesn't matter. But really, in most all cases, you need to work in your yarn. Okay, so you see I've gone all the way down almost, and that's worked in. That's not going to come undone. Okay, but here lies the problem with doing this right here. And this is something I want to show you, and it's something that a friend of mine brought to my attention. She was talking to me and she was like, what is going on here? And after I looked at it, we were actually video chatting. I was like, what is going on there? And then I realized exactly what was happening, and I had a difficult time trying to explain to her what was happening. So this is my next thing that I want to show you guys. Okay, so let's say I've got 2 pieces, I've done a color change, and I'm going to start working in some spacey, what I call spacey stitches. So the stitches are not going to be like these double crochets closer together. Let's say I'm working a V stitch, or I'm doing a double crochet and 1, or whatever I'm doing, okay? But there's spaces in between. So then if I do, let's say I start 4 and I'm doing a double crochet 1 and I'm working these in the back, okay? When I do this, it's going to leave space for these to come undone, and it's not going to be as tight in the back. Okay? So, and let's say I wanted to skip a couple. So then let's say I did a couple double crochet chain 1, but this time in my pattern it called for a double crochet chain 2, skip 2, and go into your next. You know, this is the kind of stuff we work on. So then we're going into our next one. We've still got our color change and our work behind us. We think we're doing it right. This is the way we were taught. And look at this. You see? Now you can see that back there. You can see that there's a good possibility that it's not going to stay. Okay? But you wouldn't know that. So you're just working along. So then let's say again, I've got to a place in my pattern where I need to chain 2, skip 2, go to the next. Here I am. I've still got this color change behind me. Okay. And then I go on and I keep working, and all of a sudden, this is what you see. Because this is what would happen. My stuff's undone. Like, what in the world? You know? Well, let me show you. This is my tip. If you see this happening and you're doing your work, go ahead and go back to where you started to work this in. So I can see right here is where I started to work this in. So I'm just going to pull it out. You see that? I pulled it out. And now guess what I'm going to do, guys? I bet you can guess. I'm going to take my darning needle and I'm going to work in here. And this is my next tip. And this is it. And I've said it a lot, but just in case you're new and you've never watched me before, 3 times is the charm with crochet. If you work in your ends 3 times, it's never going to come undone. Okay? So, but there's a way to do it. Because if you do it a certain way, it could technically still come undone. And I don't have a tip for that, except you can use hairspray on your ends. And I have done that before when I have it handy, but I don't have any. But if you ever have trouble getting the end, and this isn't even on my top 10, this is just something I thought about, so we'll make it my top 11. You can hairspray the end of these and it'll make them stiff and they'll go right through the needle. Okay. So in case you're having a problem like me here, you can definitely do that. Okay. But so that's this is my other tip here. I don't even know what number I'm on. I think I'm on tip number 3. I'm working down a list. So, but anyways, so remember, 3's the charm. That's it. When you're working in your yarn, 3 is the charm. So let's say I need to work in my yarn here. I would do it like this. I'm going to go through, but do you see that's still loose there? That's loose at those ends. So I'm going to bring it back up where I know there's some places where it's tight, you know? So I'm going to come up here. And then there's my second one. And then I'm going to... Oh, Rita had a great idea. She said you could put tape on the end of yarn, and that is a great idea. Yes, you can do that. It'd be easier if you didn't have hairspray. Hi, Sammy. How are you doing? Are you feeling better? So I think I just did 3, and I'm just going to do another one. And sometimes you may feel the need to do another. As Sammy, this is just my top 10 tips that every crocheter should know. Okay, so then I'm just going to go in again. And then at this point, I could cut off because I've worked in 3 times. So 3 times the charm, never knot off. Also, when you're working in the circle and you're making blankets, like let's say you were doing a circle pattern. So I'm so glad you're feeling better, Sammy. Okay, so let's say you were... you know, a lot of our patterns call for us to start with a circle or a magic circle, but we're just going to do our chain 2. Just want to show you real quick, chain 2, and then you would do like, you know, in this second one from the hook, let's say you did, you know, 6 single crochets, and then you kept doing your work. Let's just... So, you know, this would be if we were starting off with a circle, you know, and then we would pull that closed, and then we would go in into our first one, and we would do a slip stitch, you know how it goes. And then we'd continue going on with our circle, whatever it would be. And then we would have this little thing right here. Some people work this in as they go along. So if they were doing double crochets or whatever, you know, they would work that in. So, but anyways, my point is that when you get to this point, a lot of people think that they worked at this tail end enough, or they think that, that they don't need to work it in. And I don't know why that just happens. Sometimes we think we don't, sometimes we forget, but this is one of the things that will tear up your entire project when you're doing, so you keep going and you keep going and you keep going and you make this beautiful blanket or you make a beautiful granny square and you forget to work this in. Let me tell you, the next thing you know, you've got a hole that big in the middle of whatever project you're doing. So it is important that you work these in, and it is my personal opinion that you need to sew these in. Don't just work them in, sew them in. Because especially when you're doing granny squares and you're doing a bunch of them, and you know, you're putting them all together, you can forget to put these, work them in as you go, or even if you work them in, you don't work them in enough, and then they can still come out. So sew these bad boys in at the end. You know, make sure that your work never comes undone. Okay, so let's see what we're moving on to next. We have learned how to always have straight edges. We've done that. We've learned how to avoid making a triangle by using a stitch marker, and how to make those straight edges also helps. We've learned how to change color effortlessly at any point, by the way, and I am going to go back and show you that. So let's just go ahead and do that now as I'm going down my list, because that was part of that tip. Okay, so let's say, and hopefully this will all come undone. Oh, I worked my yarn in, it won't come undone. Look at that. I literally worked my yarn in there, and now it will not come undone because I cut it off. Guys, that's the way to do it. Okay, so I'm going to move over to my other swatch that I have here. I'm so glad I made more than one. And I'm going to show you how to change colors in the middle of your project. Some people do that. They want some, you know, some different looking stuff. Okay, so let's say we chain up 3, just using double crochet as an example. I'm going to I'm just going to do the regular without the edging here, just in case you don't know how to do it yet. I taught that in the beginning of the video, but in case you don't know how to do that yet, I'm just going to do it like you would normally do it. So let's say you're moseying along. Maybe you're doing a C2C blanket, or you're doing a Grafgan, or maybe you just want to have some funky looking color changes, make some colorful stuff, and you're in the middle of your work and you want to do a color change. Okay, you would do it the exact same way that you did it at the end and the beginning of your work. Okay, you would yarn over, go in, pull up your yarn, go through 2, hold this piece down, bring in your other piece. You can do like this if you need to. Make sure you leave a tail so you can work it in. And then you would just pull it through, just like that. Okay? And again, it just seems so loose, right? It seems like you didn't do it right, but you did. Okay? So then what's going to happen is, even though it seems so loose, even if I don't cut off and start, you know, pulling on it tight or anything, then I'm just going to keep going. And as I keep going, that's just going to work that color in even more, you know. So then I would go on to my next. And again, right now I'm working over these pieces. Remember though, that if I'm working a stitch that has a lot of space in it, I need to just sew those in. Okay. But yeah, so then I would just keep going. And you see, that's how you do a color change in the middle of a project. And if you can tell by doing it that way, you can't even tell that there was a color change there, really. Okay? So that's how you do that in the middle of the work. So let's see, what do we need to know next? How to add in yarn after you've run out. Well, basically, I just showed you. Okay, but let's just say you're working along in a project. You're going back and forth with your double crochets. You're doing your thing. And all of a sudden, we're going to pretend. I'm looking through my camera. Oh, I've run out of yarn. I've come to the end of my skein, the end of my ball. It's sad, but I can't go on any longer. And so I need to bring in another color. Well, first of all, look at this. I need to make sure that I leave enough to work in, okay? Don't try to go to the very end where you don't have something to work in with, okay? So I want to leave a sizable piece of yarn here so that my project never comes undone, okay? So I may even back up a bit just to make sure that I have enough, okay? So I've run out of color. I want to bring in my same color because all I did was I ran out of one skein. So you would do the same thing, leaving a pretty decently long tail, okay? But I think I could do one more. I don't want to be too extravagant here. Okay, so I would just go in, pull up my yarn, go through my first two, hold that back, bring in this yarn, you can tighten this if you need to. And then you could keep working this along as you go, like I said before, as long as you're working a stitch that is not spacey, meaning it leaves a lot of space. Okay, that's very important. So then I would keep going, working over my previous two pieces of yarn, and that's how you work in. You can't even tell how you work in your other yarn. Hi, yeah, Sammy, are you talking about the mosaic granny squares? She's asking that, she said she loved my last video. I think she's talking about the mosaic granny squares. What stitch would you use to join the squares? I want to make a throw. So just let me know, Sammy, if you're talking about the mosaic granny square, and I'll let you know. Okay, so that's how we do all that. So let's see, moving along here. How to work in your added yarn tails without falling apart. We talked about that. How to add in yarn after you've run out. 3 is the trick for weaving in yarn and it never comes undone. We went over that. How to weave in tails with a hook or a needle. We did that. And this is my last little trick about how to, and I used mine for dinner. But a great little thing that you can do in case you guys don't have the wonderful things that have the holes in them, you can use a colander out of your kitchen, okay? And like I said, I drained my my veggies in it tonight, so it's still sitting in the sink. But what you would do is you would just put your yarn in the colander, and you know what a colander looks like. It's got all those holes. And you just pull out your piece of yarn, which I could desperately use today. I think I'm actually just going to buy a colander to keep on my desk in here. And then you can just push this right through the hole, and then you don't have yarn everywhere like I do right now. You can even put more than one skein in there, as long as they're not huge skeins of yarn and all kinds of different colors, and you can just pull them out of the colander every which way. You're sitting in your recliner in your living room. You've got a big, colander, and you've got all your yarn in it with it pulled out, and you can just grab whatever you need. So that is a wonderful tip to use. I have done it before. It works really great, and I just need to get an extra one because I don't have an extra one in the house. So, okay. So Sammy did say it was the mosaic squares, okay? So if you watch that video, or if you haven't, this is a good segue for you to go watch my mosaic granny square. It's absolutely gorgeous video. It's on YouTube and Facebook. But, okay, so you want to put your squares together. First of all, the way that you would put your mosaic granny squares together, I believe in mine, the darkest color on the outside is actually this color right here. When I want to join any kind of granny squares or any kind of squares like that, I'm going to use the color that's already on the edging so that it does not break up any of the seams unless you purposely want something. However, with that mosaic granny square, with that mosaic granny square, the whole wonderfulness about that granny square is that white pop in the middle. Y'all know what I'm talking about, or that really light color in the middle that just makes it look I mean, it looks like a piece of art. It's just so beautiful. Whoever came up with that, kudos to you, because it's really like art. I paint, and it's just going light to dark, and playing with colors. So it's just a really fun thing, but you want that to stay consistent. So to do that, you would need the color that's already around the edging. So let's say this was my mosaic granny square, and I wanted to piece them together. Okay, I would just use single crochets to piece all of my squares together. So let's say, because I don't have them on me, and Sammy, you gave me a great idea. Maybe I need to make another video on how to put those together. But let's just say, for the sake of what I have on hand, that these are our 2 granny squares, and we've placed them together. Okay, and then I've got my edges. This does not have the greatest edges. Normally I would go around with a single crochet first so that I could get into them easier. But at any rate, what you would do is you would take your yarn, that same, I will make another video, Sammy, that's really a great idea, but with the actual squares, but I still want to show you now because I've already got it on my mind. But you would start with a slip knot like this, okay? But you would use that dark color on the outside. You would place your squares together, just like this. You would line them up, and you would go into your first available stitch, just like that. You would pull your slip knot through, just like this, and you would single crochet, okay? That is holding this in place. Then you would go over this and work it in as you go. And then you would do single crochets all the way down. Okay, but this, like I said, this is not, I would definitely go around these with a single crochet before I did this, but you know, it's okay to show how to do it for the video. And then you would just keep going down in each stitch with a single crochet. Okay, just like that. And see right there, I just lifted that up there and moved it past where I needed to go. So I will leave that alone, and I will come back and I will work that in later. Okay, so I would just keep going down. We're pretending these are those mosaic granny squares. Okay, and then eventually you would have worked the 2 squares together, and when you open it, this is what it would look like. Okay, now the way that I did it almost left a little bit of an edge, so I am going to come back with those. And that's Sammy, thank you so much. That's such a great idea, because I can definitely make a video on that. But there is a way to get rid of this kind of bulging edge, and it's done by working only in the front loops. But because I don't have clear single crochets here, it's hard for me to show you. I'm just gonna see real quick, since we're just on here, you know, having a little bit of fun, talking about little crochet tips and tricks. Let's see if it'll do it, because I'm working through the front loop of that other, or trying to. I don't know if it really made a difference in this. Let's see, did it? A little bit of a difference, but I'll come back and show you that. Basically, you would work through the front loops, and it would diminish this, yeah, it would diminish this raised up thing right here, because you definitely don't want that. But I really need to show you with the squares. So I will do another video for that, Sammy, and that'll be a great way to teach people how to put stuff together anyway, because that's just another tip and trick, right? Everyone needs to know how to put all this stuff together. So anyway, this has been great fun. I've enjoyed this, just giving little pointers and ideas, I might do another one because there's a lot more that I could talk about. If you have any questions, or if you have any little tips that you want to add, I can add them into my next video, and I can feature your name in it and say, hey, for example, Sammy gave me this great idea, or I think, what was her name? Rita was on here, and she told me about the tape. You could put tape on the end of your yarn when you're threading it through the needle, and it makes it easier. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'll be back soon. My next video is going to be a heart border. How to crochet a heart border, and it is so pretty. It wouldn't just be pretty for Valentine's. Of course, I am doing it because Valentine's is coming up, but it actually would be a great border for a baby blanket. And all it is just these gorgeous hearts, and they're very noticeable. They're pretty big. I'd say they're about, you know, they're probably about that big. So it's going to be a beautiful edging for any kind of blanket. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Happy crocheting. Bye-bye.